Hi, welcome to the final module, Module 10, A New Political Generation. Now, the title itself has a question mark, and there's a reason for that. The problem that seems to be emanating is not so much that we recognize there are certain social issues that we can do something about, but actually what to do about it. Usually what happens is, much like everything else, is we all have our ideals, but at the end of the day, we tend to keep amongst ourselves or just presume that there's nothing we can really do about it. In fact, if you go through the Elections Canada and voting history, you will find that those 29, the ages of 29 and younger, are the least reliable voting bloc. So the interesting part about this is, even though when we are younger, we are more aware as to the social problems, and we are much more sensitive and want to do something about it, at the end of the day, we choose, for the most part, not to actually participate in the system. So that is in itself a bit of a contradiction, and something that we really have to think about, especially when we're reading this module. Now, the idea behind Module 10 is not that we should all become intensely politically active in some sort of extreme way to overthrow a system. That's not really practical for the most part. A revolution is not necessary to make social changes. Just be active. Whether that means voting your conscience and voting for what's right when elections come up, taking the time out to actually register, that's always a positive, or being active in your community. You don't necessarily have to join a party or to be politically active in a way that you might think. Community things, community issues are always around. Just participate and do what you think is right. Ultimately, usually it's from the ground up that changes things rather than top down. That's a cliche, but it's entirely true. If we wait for our elderly, white, usually male politicians to try and come up with solutions on their own, chances are we end up with status quo, which is pretty much the norm. So, a new political generation? I guess we'll find out, but my hope is that if we open up enough eyes, perhaps we can make the changes that our society both deserves and demands. Thanks.